Deep in the fragments of Hellenistic Jewish literature lies a startling claim that has been almost completely forgotten. The ancient Greeks knew Moses not as a foreign prophet from a distant land, but as one of their own legendary figures. The Jewish historian Artapanus, writing in Ptolemaic Egypt around 150 BCE, stated this plainly and without qualification. The Greeks called Moses, when grown to manhood, Musaeus. This was not a vague comparison or a poetic metaphor. It was a direct, deliberate identification of the two figures, written by a Jewish author fluent in both Greek and Jewish traditions. Musaeus of Athens, whose very name Musaeos means he of the Muses, was one of the most revered figures in early Greek tradition. He was classed with Orpheus, Homer, and Hesiod as one of the four canonical poets of Greece, the foundational artists of the culture. But Musaeus was far more than a poet. Ancient sources describe him as a prophet who authored oracles, a philosopher who wrote theogonies, a historian, a musician, and a priest of the Eleusinian mysteries. He was a pre-Homeric culture hero who combined all knowledge in a single figure. Artapanus of Alexandria composed a work called On the Jews, of which only fragments survive. They were quoted by the encyclopedist Alexander Polyhistor in the 1st century BCE, and later preserved by the church historian Eusebius of Caesarea in his preparation for the Gospel, Book 9. In Fragment 3, Artapanus recounts the life of Moses in detail. He states that when Moses reached adulthood, the Greeks called him Musaeus. He further claims that Moses invented philosophy, boats, and Egyptian weapons, divided Egypt into 36 administrative districts, and taught Orpheus, the very father of Greek culture. Artapanus went even further. He also identified Moses with the Greek god Hermes and the Egyptian god Thoth, both deities of writing, wisdom, and divine communication. Eusebius records the reason. On account of these things Moses was deemed worthy of godlike honor by the priests and called Hermes, on account of the interpretation of sacred letters. The wordplay connected Moses with Thoth, the inventor of hieroglyphic writing. As the interpreter of divine writings, Moses became the bridge between God and humanity, the divine scribe who translated heaven words for earth. A remarkable Jewish Hellenistic poem from the 2nd to 1st century BCE, known as Pseudo-Orpheus, presents the legendary Greek singer Orpheus delivering a farewell speech to his son Musaeus, who is explicitly identified with Moses. Orpheus says, "Him no one of mortals has seen, but he sees all." This is a direct echo of Exodus 33 verse 20, where God tells Moses, "No man may see me and live." The poem describes God as invisible, unbegotten, dwelling in heaven. The rhetorical strategy was brilliant. The Greeks' own most revered poet was made to validate Jewish monotheism. The Jewish historian Eupolemus, writing around 158 BCE, made an extraordinary claim preserved by Clement of Alexandria and Eusebius. He stated that Moses was the first wise man, the first who taught the alphabet to the Jews. The Phoenicians received it from the Jews, and the Greeks from the Phoenicians. Laws were first written by Moses for the Jews. This is the dependency thesis in its strongest form. Greek civilization itself derived its alphabet and its written law from Moses, making him not just a prophet but the very source of Greek culture. The Egyptian priest Manetho, writing in the 3rd century BCE, told a radically different story about Moses. In his version, Moses was not Musaeus but Oserseph, a leprous Egyptian priest of Heliopolis who led an army of lepers against Egypt and was expelled, changing his name to Moses after his defeat. This hostile tradition was repeated by Lysimachus, Appian, Curryman, the Roman historian Tacitus, and the philosopher Porphyry. Jan Assmann, in his book Moses the Egyptian, calls this counter-history. Artapanus directly inverted this hostile tradition, turning the leprous renegade into the founder of civilization. The 1st century BCE. Historian Diodorus Siculus, in his Library of History, Book 1, catalogued the divine lawgivers of every nation. Neves of Egypt claimed his laws from Hermes. Minos of Crete received his from Zeus in a cave on Mount Ida every 9 years. Lycurgus of Sparta claimed his from Apollo at Delphi. And Moses, Diodorus wrote, ascribed his laws to the god called Iao. This is the earliest pagan reference to the name of the God of Israel. Sir Arthur Evans, the excavator of the palace of Knossos, called Minos the Cretan Moses. The first Greek to write about Moses was Hecataeus of Abdera, around 300 BCE. He described Moses as a wise and courageous leader who founded Jerusalem, established the temple, and issued laws. Strabo, the great geographer, described Moses as an Egyptian priest who deplored animal worship and taught that the deity encompasses all things. Tacitus recounted the Exodus in his histories, and the Platonist philosopher Numenius of Apamea in the 2nd century CE, famously asked, "What is Plato but Moses speaking Attic Greek?" He called Moses simply the prophet. The forgotten ancient Greek figure who most closely resembles the biblical Moses is Musaeus of Athens. This is not a matter of vague comparative mythology or coincidental parallels. It is a matter of direct, explicit textual identification by multiple independent ancient sources. Artapanus said the Greeks called Moses Musaeus. Alexander Polyhistor transmitted this to the Roman world. Numenius of Apamea affirmed it. The pseudo-Orpheus poems embedded it in Greek verse. Eupolemus claimed Moses invented the alphabet and written law. The identification was deliberate, widespread, and grounded in the Hellenistic Jewish claim that Greek civilization itself derived from Jewish wisdom.